5 seconds. That's how long it took for the water to close over her. 5 seconds of gasps, screams, and shattering illusions. On August 15, 2023, before a crowd of 2,500 spectators, Neptune, an 8,000-pound orca, turned a routine performance at OceanWorld Marine Park into a tragedy. And Maris Ellington, a trainer who had danced with the ocean's giants for a decade, would never rise again. My name is Lisa Campbell, a journalist chasing the truth behind that day, sifting through reports, memories, and the echoes of a life lost to the deep. The story began long before that fateful afternoon, in the cold waters off Iceland's coast in October 2005. A pod of orcas sliced through the waves, their calls weaving a symphony beneath the surface. Among them was a calf, barely 3 years old, her black and white body small against her mother's flank. Fishermen, hired by a marine park consortium, had been watching the pod for days. Their nets were ready, their boats positioned. The calf, later named Neptune, was torn from her family in a chaos of thrashing water and panicked cries. She was too young to understand why the ocean, once vast and boundless, became a cage of steel and concrete. By November 2005, she arrived at OceanWorld Marine Park in California, a trembling creature in a chlorinated pool, her world reduced to a 50-foot basin. The park's records noted her as ORC 305, healthy female, estimated age 3 years. No mention was made of the pod she'd never see again. By July 1, 2023, Neptune had grown into a formidable presence, her sleek body stretching 20 feet, her eyes carrying a weight that seemed to hold the ocean's secrets. Maris Ellington, a 32-year-old trainer with a quiet intensity, had worked with Neptune for 8 years. She was known for her skill, her ability to coax tricks from the orca with a flick of her wrist or a sharp whistle. But that summer, something had shifted. Reports from the park's veterinary team, buried in stacks of paperwork I later uncovered, noted Neptune's declining appetite and erratic behavior. She would circle her tank for hours, her massive tail slapping the water, sending waves crashing against the glass. Maris had seen it too, her notes describing Neptune's unusual stillness and intense stares. Yet the show schedules remained unchanged, driven by the park's need for ticket sales. On July 10, 2023, the air at OceanWorld was thick with tension. The park was bleeding money, its finances strained by declining attendance and rising maintenance costs. A memo from the park's manager, Jacob Rains, emphasized the importance of the summer season. Maris, despite her concerns, was under pressure to keep Neptune performing. She spent extra hours by the pool, tossing fish and practicing routines, hoping to reconnect with the orca she'd once considered a partner. The veterinary report from July 12, which I found in a leaked file, was clinical. ORC 305 exhibits reduced response to commands. Recommend behavioral observation. No action was taken. The park couldn't afford to pause. August 1 brought a new wave of unrest. Outside OceanWorld's gates, activists gathered, their signs demanding freedom for the park's orcas. Captivity kills, one banner read, its letters bold against the California sun. Maris, I learned from her journal, had stood at a window watching them, her thoughts a tangle of guilt and loyalty. She had joined OceanWorld in 2015, drawn by a childhood dream of swimming with whales. But the reality, endless shows, cramped tanks, and the weight of Neptune's gaze, had worn her down. She wrote of Neptune's capture, a story she'd pieced together from old staff members, the calf's cries, the nets, the helicopter lifting her from the sea. Maris carried that story like a stone in her chest. On August 14, the day before the tragedy, Maris spent her final hours with Neptune. She stood on the training platform, her silhouette sharp against the shimmering water. Neptune was sluggish, her movements heavy, as if the years in captivity had settled into her bones. Maris tossed a fish, but the orca ignored it, her eyes fixed on the trainer. The moment lingered in the park's surveillance footage, which I reviewed months later, a woman and an orca, locked in a silent exchange, the prelude to a catastrophe. August 15, 2023, dawned bright and merciless. The main arena was packed, families clutching souvenirs, children waving glow sticks. Maris stepped onto the performance platform, her blue wetsuit gleaming under the lights. The show began flawlessly. Neptune leaped, spun, and splashed, each move met with cheers. But as Maris signaled for the final act, a synchronized swim, Neptune hesitated. The crowd didn't notice, but I saw it in the footage, a pause, a flicker in the orca's eyes. Then, in a blur of black and white, Neptune surged forward, her jaws closing around Maris's leg. The water erupted, swallowing her in a churn of bubbles. 5 seconds. That's all it took. The crowd's cheers turned to screams, but the water stayed silent. The aftermath was chaos. Park staff cleared the arena, sirens wailed, and Neptune circled her tank, her fin cutting the surface. The official report, dated August 16, 2023, was stark: incident at 14:32. Trainer Maris Ellington, deceased. Cause: orca interaction. No mention of negligence, no acknowledgement of the warnings Maris had raised. By September 30, 2023, OceanWorld announced the end of its orca shows, a decision framed as voluntary but driven by public outcry and my own articles exposing the park's safety lapses. As I sit with these documents, the weight of Maris's story presses against me. She was more than a trainer, she was a woman who loved the ocean, who believed she could bridge the gap between human and orca. Neptune, too, was more than a performer, a creature stolen from her home, her life shaped by walls she could never escape. Their story, bound by a single tragic moment, asks us to look deeper, to question the cost of our entertainment.